Yeah, let me ask you a quick question, David. We're talking about retirement, so let's kind of put some numbers to that. I did some research earlier, and it looks like um, as of this year, there's 4.2 million people turning 65, and it seems like when people talk retirement, they kind of tie it with aging into Medicare or turning 65. Also looked up and a couple other things. And I noticed one out of every five seniors age 65 or older are still working. So my mind, getting in this business a long time ago and you being at a younger age, to me, I think, if we're talking retirement, we shouldn't be working. Is that correct?
Wow, wow. It's actually a really good statistic, Steve, because honestly, I didn't even know those specific numbers. So thanks for looking that up. But no, I think that, I think some of it's a brainwashing mechanism. And I think when we get into the retirement cycle, and we see it all the time with the clients that we have and some of the seminars, Steve, that you and I actually do together, we hear a lot of, I have to still work, or I don't really want to, but I don't have enough money in my nest egg, or I want more, right? And I would say probably most of the time that we actually sit down with a client, we figure out right away that they should be retired. And one of our famous sayings, you and I always say this, when you meet us, you'll retire the day you meet us, which that's a pretty cool thing to say, especially when we have tons of clients that we meet every day. And from week to week at our seminars, whether we're at Wash House or local or wherever it is in Baldwin County, we make that connection with people, and it's really the confidence that we give them to retire. And no, Steve, I think that the one out of the five people that are working, I think that number should be drastically lower. I really do.
Right, right. I agree with you. Absolutely. So, we're talking about, if we just open it up to what I've seen, I've been working with you for a year and a half now, and been fortunate enough to see your math brain come into the picture in retirement. I think that's different. Been doing this 30 years, and you usually read about concepts or you read about rules, and you don't even approach it that way. You really do it on a unique one-on-one basis with a customer, and and you start looking at their portfolio, looking at what their picture of retirement is, because everybody has a different retirement. And I know you and I met a client, I don't know, was it 6 months ago, and the wife was sitting there with the husband, and she said, "We'd like to go on 2 cruises a year." And,
Yeah.
we're concerned. And now those cruises, we asked her, "How much do you think a cruise costs?" And for her and her husband, it was 25,000 a cruise. Now, we're fortunate enough, we went on a cruise last week through the company and it was paid for, but that was nice. But I can't imagine paying 25,000 going on 2 a year. How did you help that client work in their financial retirement plan to afford to be able to keep continuing going on those cruises while they're retired and not earning W-2 income?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, but first I wanna start off with the basics. And you brought up a great point that I think we skip a lot on, and a lot of finance professionals really skip on this topic because the industry is so wide, okay? I think one of the biggest, complex problems that we have is that we have agents and finance professionals out there that aren't really tailoring towards the client's needs. And I think that's the number one, pinpoint accuracy that really need to hit. And I think that a lot of the times when, someone meets with someone or someone comes into an office through another company or organization, they're tailored towards what really the agent wants or what they want out or what they think the client should do instead of what the client wants. Right. And I mean, that's one of the big parts, Steve. And I have to give it out to you, man. I mean, I've learned a lot from you in that aspect, but we really do care, and that's something that we would have never even known that they wanted to go on those cruises and they wanted to fit that in their retirement cycle if we didn't ask them what they really wanted to do with their funds, right? And I think the client had a little bit over $1 million in a TSB, and at that point they were kind of pulling money out when they wanted to, and really, being fully aggressive in the TSB that the client had was not the right cycle. And I think when you do the math, and we'll talk a little bit about this in actually another episode, which I'm super excited to get into some of the spreadsheets that I do. But, you know, when you're actually taking that money out, right, and you're having some losses in the market, if the market is volatile, you see a little drastic change when you want growth in your account, right? We always talk about the losses
Right.
and the positives, and that becomes a big play in retirement when you're not funding that 401k or IRA, you're actually taking money out, which actually exponentially reverses that mathematical formula. So it's totally different. Now, for that client specifically, right? We actually helped them out with some guaranteed income, figured out the exact expenses that they wanted to spend on those 2 cruises. And we did get that done, and they are absolutely having a blast. I think they're actually away right now as we speak.